Hello, boys and girls, moms and dads, grandmas, grandpas, cats and dogs, and peanut butter sandwiches at home. It's Teacher Paul here. Today we're going to be doing our fourth video on the FreeCodeCamp Responsive Web Design course. In the last video, we made some CSS colored pens using very little HTML and a lot of CSS. You can see my final project here. So this is all the CSS we wrote. Important things to look at here. We used different methods to define colors. So we used RGB. We used the hex codes, including adding an alpha channel to the hex code down here. We used HSL, hue, saturation, lightness. And there I added another marker myself, a pink one, just to get some extra practice using HSL, because I'm not very familiar with HSL. I've never actually used it before yesterday. I always use RGB or hex codes. So that was yesterday, but today we're going on to our fourth project. Learn HTML forms by building a registration form. You can use HTML forms to collect information from people who visit your web page. In this course, we'll learn HTML forms by building a sign-up page. You'll learn how to control what types of data people can type into your form and some new CSS tools for styling your page. So we're going to get started here. We'll go on to number 1. And we can see that this is what we're going to be making. We can type in our name, our last name, our email, a password. You can select if it's personal or business account, a little checkbox there as well. We can upload a profile picture, put in how old you are, and also select how did you hear about us from the Dropdown. And add a little bio here as well. And then you can click submit. And you can see if any of the information is not correct or not filled in properly, the form will validate itself. And it says, please fill in this field. Okay, it's looking good. So let's get started coding. Welcome to the registration form project. Start by adding the document type declaration at the top of the document. So just like we did yesterday, and we have to do this every time that we start a HTML document. Doc type HTML. So there we go. Remember, guys, if you forget any of these things, you can always go to W3 Schools. W3 Schools. It's invaluable. We touched on it yesterday, but programmers very rarely remember everything, and you'd be surprised how much people need to find the answers online or Google things, especially things you don't use often. Then you can always go to W3 Schools. For example, I don't know, yesterday HSL color was a new concept for me. I had never really used it before. So I can go to W3 Schools, and they have all this information about how HSL color works. And they even let you play with it here. So if I change that to 50 and that's 75, you can see what the different colors will look like as you move around in the HSL color space. Okay, so let's get started. And we've finished step 1, check the code. And off we go. Number 2, add the opening and closing HTML tags. Of course, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to open our HTML. Should be very simple for you guys by now, I think. And I'm going to close my HTML as well. Now open your head and body inside HTML. Okay, so we start by opening our head. I'm going to close my head. Now I'm going to open my body. And I'm going to close my body as well. All very simple so far. And as always, FreeCodeCamp comes up asking us for a little donation. I think it's an excellent resource, which is and it works as a non-profit. So of course, anything you can give is a great help to FreeCodeCamp. Add a title element to the head and give your project a title of registration form. Okay, so we'll do that first. We'll add our title. We're going to call it registration form. And I'll close my title. Also, nest a self-closing link in the head with the relationship of Stylesheet, text CSS, and a href of styles.css. So link. And then we're going to put rel equals Stylesheet. And from there, then our type equals text / CSS. And then href equals styles.css. So we have what we're doing there is we're linking to our CSS document so that we're able to style. We've done this before. And we have a problem. Your link should be a self-closing element. What have I done here? It's a common mistake I see my students. I've forgotten to close my brackets. So once I've done that, then it should be fine. Your link element should be a self-closing element. Okay, I believe it is. Link. Okay, so we're running into a little problem here. Let me see here. Link, relationship, style sheet, type, text CSS, href equals styles.css. And it is a self-closing element. So what have do you guys see it? Do you see where I've made a mistake here? Yeah, self-closing element. Nest a self-closing element inside the head. Yes, that's inside the head. Okay, try this. Okay, so actually this is something they haven't really taught us before. For self-closing elements, so you can see there's only one tag here. Okay, just a link tag. And to get it to close, we need to use an angled, a dash, a slash there. But so far, FreeCodeCamp has been very forgiving about that. But right now, they have decided, well, no, we need to do it properly. So there we go. I've got my slash in, and now it's happy enough with the code. Within the body, provide a heading context for the content by adding h1 with registration form. Okay, so we open our h1. We'll type the word registration form. And then I'll close my h1 as well. Great. Below the heading, use the following text within a paragraph element to encourage users to register. Please fill out this form with the required information. So I start my p tag. Please fill out this form with the required information. And then I'm going to close my p tag as well. Great. Step number 6 done. Now we start with our CSS. To spruce the project up, let's use some CSS. Give the body a width of 100 and a height of 100 VH. Okay, so VH is vertical height, and that is dependent on how big your monitor, and width of 100%. So This is CSS now, so I'm targeting an element, so I just type its name, body, and inside I'm going to say width 100% semicolon, and then we're going to say height, and that is going to be 100 VH semicolon. Okay, we see no change so far. Step number 8. Now, get rid of the horizontal scroll bar by setting the body default margin added by some browsers to 0. So down here, I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but there's a scroll bar which can move left and right. But we want the body to fill the full page. But no matter how big I make the screen, we have a scroll bar at the bottom. That's a little bit ugly. And that's because browsers will automatically add some margin. We don't want that. So we are going to specify that our margin is going to be 0. When I do that, look, my scroll bar is gone. Okay? Right. So let's check our code. That's better. Now let's make the background easy on the eyes. We're going to change the background color to hex code 1B1B32, and see the text, we're going to change the color to F5, F6, F7. Okay, so background color, and we're going to say hashtag 1B1B32 semicolon. Now, yeah, the text is really hard to see, so let's change the color to hashtag F5, F6, F7, which should be very white. Yes, not pure white, but very white indeed. Okay, and on now to number 10. As suggested by the title, you're creating a form. So after the P, insert a form with an action attribute targeting register-demo FreeCodeCamp.org. Okay, form. Oh, we need to make the element, so form, and we're going to say action. Remember, the action is where the information will get sent. https://register-demo.freecodecamp.org. Now that should be outside here. There we go. And then we're going to close our form as well. Great. Now all the different parts of our form are going to go inside here. We want to have 3 sections on the form. So we're going to add 3 field set elements inside. Okay, so I tab in, start my first field set, then close it, F-I-E-L-D-S-E-T, close it. I'm going to copy that, paste and paste. Right. Number 12. The first field set will have name, email, and passwords. Let's add 4 label elements inside. So in here, we want to have 4 label elements. So here's my first one. And I'm going to take all of that, copy 2, 3, 4. So that's our first label elements. Done. Now for step number 13. Add the following text to the label elements. Enter your first name, enter your last name, enter your email, and create a password. So the first one is enter your first name, then enter your last name, enter your email, and finally create a new password. So enter there, and those 4 labels have gone in. Right now it looks super ugly, but I'm sure we'll get to that later. As label elements are inline, they appear on the same line as the text they are labeling. To make them appear on separate lines, add display block to the label element and a margin of 0.5 rem to separate them from each other. Okay, so we're going to target the label element. We're going to say display block and margin 0.5 rem. Now, I believe rem is a new term that we've come across doing this project. So maybe we should take a moment and we should go to W3 schools and find out what is rem. So REM. Okay, CSS units, there we go. So in CSS, there's a lot of different units. Some of them are absolute. Absolute means they are definite, like they're never going to change, like centimeter, millimeter, inch, pixels, points, and picas. Other ones are relative. They change depending on different things. Now, some of these will change based on how big the screen is the user is looking at. But the one we're looking at is rem. Rem is relative to the font size of the root element. So the rem will change depending on the size of the body's font. So if I make the font size bigger, then the size of one rem will get bigger. Now here they have an option for us to try it. So let's see what that does. So the font size of this document is 16. And this div is 2 rem, which means it's 2 times 16, which means it's going to be 32. And then this one is 3 rem. So let's have a look at our CSS here. Yeah, the HTML font size is 16. Now if I change that to be 4, and see, run. Yes, now we've seen everything has gotten smaller because I changed the HTML font size. If I change that to be 10 and press run, and now there we go. We can see all the sizes on the page change. Rem is very useful because by changing just this one font size, like I can set it to 20, then everything else will automatically change too. So we've set it to 0.5 rem. And we have a problem. Oh, it's 0.5 rem space 0. There we go. On step number 15. Put an input element inside every label. Be sure to add input after the label text and include some space after the colon. Okay, so the input has to go here. Input. Now, are input elements self-closing? I think they are. I seem to remember that input elements are self-closing. So we're just going to put them here. Now we need to make sure we have some space. So I'm going to put a space, space, and space. Okay, I think that should be right. They're happy, I'm happy, everyone's happy. Number 16. Specifying the type attribute of a form element is important so the browser knows what type of information it should expect. If the type is not specified, the browser will default to text. So you can see there, they're all text fields right now. Give the first two elements a type attribute of text, the third email, and the fourth password. Okay. So input type equals text. Select that and copy it because we're going to put it down here as well. And then for the third one is going to be email type equals email. And the fourth one, make sure I get my inverted commas there. The fourth one is going to be password type equals password. Great. So now when I type in the password one, you can see that the password is not visible. No one can see that, right? Okay. The first input element with the type of submit is automatically set to submit to the nearest parent form element. So when you have a submit option, that is going to complete the action of that form. And the action of this form is register demo freecodecamp.org. To handle a form submission, after the last field set, add an input element with the attribute set to submit and the value set to submit. So we go under our last field set and we put in an input. And our input is going to have type equals submit. And its value is set to submit also. Now it's self-closing tag, so I'm going to do it properly with my slash and then the closing bracket. You should give the input element a value of submit. Oh, and that has a capital S. So when you're coding, you need to worry about capital letters as well. Step number 18. At this point, you should be able to submit the form. However, when you do, you'll notice that nothing really happens. To make it more interactive, add the required attribute to the input elements in the first field set. Now, if you try to submit the form without filling in the required fields, you'll see an error. So our first field set is here, and all of these need to have required. So in the input element, we add the required attribute. So we say required, required like this, and copy that, paste, paste, and paste. So now if I try to submit, it will say, hey, fill in your name. Okay, filling in my name. Submit. Now fill in your last name. Okay. All right. Filling in my last name. Submit. Hey, don't forget your email. Okay, cheese. And hey, you need to have an @ in the email address. Oh gosh, so mafan. cheese@cheese.com. Okay, submit. And it says, please have a password too. Password. And now I can submit finally after all of that. Okay, now I pressed restart, so it's deleted all the code I added. So I need to get that back in there. Copy, paste, paste, paste. There we go. Your code has passed. Number 19. Certain type attributes come with built-in validation. For example, email checks to make sure that it is a valid email. Add a custom validation to the password by adding a minimum length of 8. So we don't want someone to have a password that is just one character, like A. That would be too easy, right? So we're going to put another attribute, which is min length equals 8. So our min length now is going to be 8. So if I type 3 letters, and let's just fill in all of this, okay, and press submit, it says no, this needs to be 8 characters or more. Great. And Edge wants to save that password. No, thank you. With type equals password, you can use the pattern attribute to define a regular expression the password must match to be considered valuable or valid. Add a pattern to the password to require it to match A to Z, 0 to 5, and it needs to be 8 characters long. The above is a regular expression which matches 8 or more lowercase letters to the digit 0 or the digit 0 to 5. Then remove min length and try it out. Okay, so we're getting rid of min length. Was nice to know you. And instead, we're going to say pattern equals, and we're going to use square brackets, A to Z, close my square brackets, then curly brackets, 8, comma, close my brackets. So now if I type A5, I have to fill in all of this. Okay, submit. We'll say match the requested format. So ba 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 da da da. No, and now there we go. So then it will work, right? Oh, let's get our preview back up here. So it has to fill in these rules, lowercase 0 to 5. I'm curious if I can use uppercase and fill in the name. So these are uppercase letters. Submit. And no, it's not letting me use uppercase letters. So that's probably not ideal. Pattern value of A to Z 0 to 5. A to Z 0 to 5. Okay, I forgot to put in 0 to 5. And now, there we go. Let's go to the next part of the registration form. This section will ask for type of account the user is opening and confirm the user has read the terms and conditions. 3 label elements. So we want 3 label elements inside here. Copy. 1, 2, 3. There we go. So we have our 3 labels inside the second section of the form. 22. Users will be allowed to choose either personal or business. To do this, with each of the 2 label elements, add 1 element with the type radio. Okay. Input type equals radio. And that's self-closing, so I need to use my dash there. Copy that, and we're going to put that into the first 2 label elements. So now we have 2 radio buttons there. For terms and conditions, add an input with type of checkbox on the 3rd label element. We do not want users sign up without reading the terms and conditions. Make it required. Input type equals checkbox required and self-closing. So there we go. So now we have 2 radio buttons and a checkbox. You can see right now I can pick both of the radio buttons at the same time. We'll need to fix that later. Inside each label and immediately after the input, add a space and the following text. Space, and then we want personal account. Next one is going to be business account. So after the input, add a space and then business account. And then I accept the terms and conditions. After the input, which is right there, space, and I accept the terms and conditions. 25. You only want 1 radio button to be selectable at a time, but the form does not know the radio inputs are related. We did this in our first project as well. To relate the inputs, give them the same name with a value of account type. Okay. So name equals account dash type. And I made a typo there. Okay, so name equals account type, and we're going to put that down there as well. So now if I click personal or business, those 2 are related and I can only pick 1 at a time. Number 26. to finish this field set off, link the text terms and conditions to the following location. Now you can see that they're really not holding your hand now. You need to remember how to do this. To make a link, we use a href equals. And then we're going to only apply this to terms and conditions. So we don't want it to apply to the whole thing. And then here we're going to close our a tag. So I accept the terms and conditions. You should only wrap the a element around the text terms and conditions. Okay, so let's see, have I made a mistake here? Ah, yes, I have. I've taken a space as well. So now, there we go. It was just, I had linked a space before the word terms. Moving on to the final field set. What if you wanted to allow a user to upload a picture? Well then, input type file allows that. Add a label with the text upload a profile picture and add an input accepting a file. Okay, so label, upload a profile picture, space, input, type equals file. So now you can see it says upload a profile picture, choose file. If you click this button, it will bring you to where you can choose a file to upload. So I think my profile picture is going to be this. Okay, Control and Enter, and on to number 28. Add another label after the first with the text input your age, years, and nest an input with the type of number. As we do not want users under the age of 13, add a minimum attribute with the value of 13. We can also probably assume users over the age of 120 will not want to register. Yeah, that's true. All the 120-year-olds I know, they're terrible at the internet. Add a max attribute of 120. So after our profile picture, we are going to have another label. Let me close off the label as well before we move on, so I don't forget at the end, like always. Now inside that label, we're going to say input your age, years, and add a space. And then we're going to have input type equals number. Then min equals 13. Then max equals 120. And then it's self-closing. So there we go. And so here you can see I'm not able to go lower than 13. If I change that to 120, if I try to go up, I cannot. If I type 8, press submit, filling in all of this as well. So I cannot accept. It says it needs to be greater than 13. So we can't have kids signing up. Adding a drop-down to the form is easy with the select element. The select element is a container for a group of options. And the option element acts as a label for every drop-down option. Both elements need closing tags. Start by adding select element below the two label elements and add 5 options inside the select element. Okay, so our select element is going to go below the 2 label options. Okay, select. And we need a closing tag for select. Now inside select, we are going to have options. And it wants us to have 5 options. Option and close option. Select all of that. and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right now you can see it's empty, but 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, 5 options are showing up. They're just empty right now. Nest a select element inside a label element with the text, "How did you hear about us?" Okay, so we need to put all of this inside a label. And the label should say, "How did you hear about us?" Making sure we add a space. And we need to close our label down here as well. I'm going to select all of this and I'm going to press Tab to push it in so the code is more tidy. There we go. So we have "How did you hear about us?" and we have our empty drop down. Number 31. The drop down options are empty. To give them content, add the following text to each option. So the first one says select one. The second one says FreeCodeCamp news. The third one says YouTube channel. The next one is the forum. And then the last one is other. So now when I select my drop down, I can see all of those options showing up there. Check my code. You're happy, I'm happy, everyone's happy. 32. Submitting the form with an option selected would not be useful value to the server. As such, each option needs to be given a value attribute, without which the text content of the option will be submitted to the server. Give the first option a value of empty, and every other one will have 1 or 4. So option value equals, leave that empty. And then the other ones are going to be 1 to 4. Value equals 1. Value equals 2. Value equals 3. I see I've made my code a bit messy there. There we go. That's nicer. And then the last one, value equals 4. So what we're going to send, instead of sending the text, we're just going to send either 1, 2, 3, or 4. Number 33. The text area element acts like an input element of the type text, but comes with extra space. So you can write more inside a text area than you can inside text. To allow users to register with a bio, add a label with the text "provide a bio" followed by text area element, which requires a closing tag. Okay, so add a label with the text "provide a bio." Label, provide a bio, space. Then we're going to have input, type equals text area. Then we're going to close our label like so. So here you can type a lot more space. You have a lot more space to type, I think. But type equals text area. Okay. You should nest a text area element inside. Oh, okay. My apologies. So it should not be an input. It should be a text area. Then we need to close text area as well. So we get a closing tag like that. And yes, now we have a big box that we're able to resize and we can type as much as we want inside there. Okay, 34. The text area is too small. Give it an initial size. You can add rows and columns tribute. Set 3 and 30. Okay, so rows equals 3. And then cols equals 30. Now we have more space initially. 35. To give campers an idea of what to put in their bio, the placeholder attribute is used. Placeholder accepts text value, which is displayed until the user starts typing. Give the text area a placeholder of "I like coding on the beach." Placeholder equals "I like coding on the beach." So now you can see, if we look over here, it already has some text inside before you type anything. When it's empty, it says, "I like coding on the beach." 36. With form submissions, it's useful and good practice to provide each element a name attribute. This attribute is used to identify the element in the form. Give each submittable element a unique name of your choosing, except for the 2 radio inputs. So every input needs to have a name. Now this is a big step. So first one, name equals, and we're going to call this first name. Second one, I'm going to say name equals, and this is our last name, so we're going to call it last name. Then name equals user mail. Okay, and here we will say name equals user password. The radios we don't need to do. The checkbox, name equals terms. Then we come down here and we have file. This is the profile picture. Name equals, and we'll say profile. We can use any names you want here. It's not going to check, but I'm still trying to keep it a little bit descriptive. So for age, I'm going to say name equals age. Okay. And that should be it, right? Should give select element a name attribute. Select. Oh yes, this is the input. Name equals refer. Okay. And how about our text area? Name equals bio. Okay. So there. We've put names on all of our inputs, so we can go on to the next challenge. HTML for the registration form is finished, but now we need to spruce it up a bit using CSS. Change font to Tahoma and font size 16 inside the body. Okay. Font capital T, Tahoma, semicolon. And then, so it should be font family, right? Family should be Tahoma. There we go. And font size, and we're going to set that to 16 px. Semicolon. Okay. So we've passed that. Now, because we're changing the font size, we should see the margins will change as well as we change that, because we're using rem to define our margins. So just to remember that from the first lesson. Okay, where's my button gone? So you have a problem here, so we're going to press restart step. And we still seem to have a problem. My button has disappeared. Let's refresh the page. There we go. So we'll just quickly enter that again. Font family Tahoma, semicolon, not Tahome, Tahoma. And then last one, font dash size 16px. Check your code and submit. 38. Center the H1 and P elements by giving them a margin of 1 EM auto, 1 EM auto. Then align their text in the center as well. So we have another unit we've never seen. This is not rem, this is EM. On W3 schools, we can see EM is relative to the font size of the element. So it's going to be 2 EM means it'll be 2 times the size of the current font. And we are using 1 EM. So we'll have space of 1 times the font size and align their text in the center. So we want to select H1, comma, P. Okay, for H1 and P. And we want to say margin 1 EM auto. Great, that seems to have worked. And then we want to text align center. So they have been automatically moved over to the middle now as well. 39. Center the form element by giving it a margin of 0 auto, then fix its size to a maximum width of 500 and minimum width of 300 px. In between that range, allow it to have a width of 60 VW. Now, this is an interesting challenge here. We might need to do a little bit of research to get this correct. But we're going to target the form element. I know that much. We're going to give it a margin, and the margin is going to be 0 auto, semicolon. Now, we want its maximum width to be 500 pixels and its minimum width to be 300 pixels. Let's try maximum width, and we'll set that to 500 px. Now, I'm not sure if maximum width is a unit. So let's search here back onto W3 schools. Maximum width. Here we go. So it's actually max width. And then I guess we're going to use min width as well. So instead of maximum, we just say max width 500 pixels. There we go. You see how W3 schools can help you out? Min width is going to be 300. So right now it's showing as 500 pixels as I try to make it smaller. There we go. Okay. And then we're going to give it a normal width of 60 VW. So 60% of the vertical width is going to be its normal size, but it's not going to get bigger than 500 pixels. That's me later. During development, it's useful to see the Fieldset default borders. However, they make the content look too separated. Remove the border and add 2 rem of padding only to the top and bottom of each field set. Be sure to remove the padding from the left and right. Okay. So we're targeting our field set. First one, we need to remove the border. Border 0. Borders are gone. Great. After that, we want to add padding of 2 rem to the top and bottom, but we want 0 for the left and right. Done. Okay, starting to come along nicely. 41, give the field set element some separation. Select all but the last field set element and give them a border bottom of 3 pixels. So we want all of the field sets, but not the last one. So how can we do this? Select all but the last field set and give them border bottom of 3 pixels. So we want to get this field set, but not this one. So we want A and B. I wonder, do they want us to give them class names to make that possible? So we could go in here, class equals field 1. And for our second field set, if I can find it here, is here. We can say class equals field 2. And this is our third field set. We don't want to target that one. Okay, so here if I go dot field 1, comma, dot field 2, let's just test color blue. So yeah, that is targeting the 2 field sets. Okay, but we want to give them a bottom border. Okay, bottom border. I have it as 3 pixels, space, solid. And then the color is going to be 3B3, B4F. Okay. Instead of saying bottom border, it should be border bottom, border dash bottom. There we go. So we have some nice lines there on those 2. Okay, so your code does not pass. It wants us to use a pseudo class, so we're not going to use I've made class names, but it doesn't want us to do that. So it wants us to say field set, but then not okay. So this is, as we get further into FreeCodeCamp, we need to solve problems on our own. So how can we select all but not the last one? Select all. So in W3 schools here, you can select not. Let's learn how this will work. Pseudo selector, not pseudo selector. CSS not. Okay. So not P. Okay. So you would say not P. So that will do everything except P. Okay. Now what about last of selector? Last of type selector. P, last of type. Okay. Specify background color for the last P. So then you can combine not and last of type. Okay, so what I think we're going to do is we're going to say field set not last of type. Field set not last of type. So here, like this. There we go. That looks like it's done it. And wow, what a complicated selector. So we're selecting all the field sets, but we're not selecting the last one of that type. Wow, I guess that is going to cause some of you a lot of trouble. As I say, guys, W3 Schools, it is such a useful resource. Okay. It would be nice to have the label appear above the form elements. Select all input, text area, and select elements and make them take up the full width. Okay. So we're going to select input, text area, and select. And we're going to say width 100%. There we go. So they're taking up all the space. And we're going to add a 10 pixel margin to the top and the other margins to 0. Okay, margin 10px 0, 0, 0. Just like that. That has completed. Number 43. For the second field set, you want the input and label to appear on the same line for the second field set. Yeah, we don't want our checkbox to be up here, right? Okay. Start by giving the input element of the second field set a class of inline. Okay, so input of the second field set. This is our second field set. All of them want to have class equals inline. Okay. So select all of that text, copy, paste, paste. Okay. Now in CSS, give them a width of onset, which will remove the earlier rule. So we go dot inline width onset. So we get to the hierarchy of how CSS works. Here is a very big selector. It's selecting a lot of things. And because of that, it's less important than this one, which is selecting a very specific thing. Okay, so the specificity of this selector is more valuable than the specificity of this one. That's a hard word to say, specificity. Okay, and so it will follow this rule. 45. Add some space between the inline elements. So the label and text by giving a right margin of 0.5 em. Also set the other margins to 0. Okay, so we're going to say margin. I'm going to say 0 for top, 0 for the bottom, 0.5 em for right, and 0 for the left. Should be correct. You give inline a margin right of 0.5. Oh, okay, so they want me to use margin right and 0.5 em. And margin bottom of 0. They want me to do it all like that. Okay, margin bottom 0, margin top 0, margin left 0. Okay, great. It's a lot of code. I think my way was better. If you look closely enough, you'll notice the inline elements are too high on the line. To combat this, set the vertical line to middle. Okay. So in here we say vertical dash align middle. Okay. 47. To make the input and text areas blend with the background, set their background color and give them a border. So yeah, we don't want them to look like these big white horrible boxes. So we're going to select input, comma, text area. I'm going to say background color. My typing is atrocious today. Color. I'm going to set that to hashtag 0A0A23. And then we're going to give them a pixel, 1 pixel solid border. 1px solid, hashtag 0A0A23. Okay, that makes them look a bit more like they are part of the page. 48. If you type into the input or input area elements, you'll not be able to see the text. Yeah, it's too dark. Ugh, horrible. Also, the height is too small to be easy to use. Fix this, set the color to white and set their minimum height to 2M. Okay, min height 2M. And then color white. There we go. So now we can see our text much better. Oh, instead of using white, they want me to use hashtag FFF, which is the same thing. Okay. 49. You want to select elements to remain with the white background, but now it's not getting the same minimum height as the input and text area elements. Move the minimum height property and values so that all these elements have the same minimum height value. So I need to find where my minimum height one is. So it's here. I'm going to cut it. And we want to put it in the input text area and select, which I think I already, yeah, here. Paste. So now they will all have the same size. 50. Style submit button, you can use an attribute selector, which selects an element based on its attribute value. Here's an example, input name equals password. This selects all the input elements which have a name of password. Now use the attribute selector to style the submit button with a display of block and a width of 60. So we're going to select input, square brackets, name equals, and we called that submit, I think. Let me check my HTML, find our input button, value equals submit. Okay, value equals submit. So input, name attribute of password, and just let's submit button. So how about if we say value equals submit? Okay. Is that going to work? Value equals submit. Well, we'll give it a go anyway, right? So we're selecting input with the value of submit. Maybe I should go type is submit. Okay. In here, I want to say display block with 60%. There you go. It's definitely done it. Whether they'll be happy? Yeah, they're happy. Okay, so I used it using the type attribute there. I think I could also use value, and this needs to be a capital S because the value has a capital S, and that works as well. Okay, restart step there. I'll just quickly input type equals submit, and go down here, do this. I'm going to say display play display block with 60%. Perfect. And you guys can see my button has disappeared there. So I'm going to refresh that. Paste my code back in. There we go. Couple of bugs. No worries. 51. When display of block, submit button sits flush against the left edge. We want to center it. So we want to center it using the same technique we use center the form element. So the form is centered this way, margin 0 auto. So I'll copy that, come down here, check, done. That centered my submit button. To make the submit button look more in line with the rest of the form, give it the same height as the other fields, 2M, and increase the font size to 1.1 or M. font size 1.1 or EM. It's going to make the font a bit bigger. And then we want to say height 2M, making it a little bit bigger as well. Now for 53, to make the submit button more distinct, give it a background color of this and a border color of white. Okay, background color, hashtag 3B3B4F, giving it kind of a gray background, and border color white. Oh, I forgot my semicolon here. Now it should be okay. Great. Lastly, for the submit button, you want to separate it from the field set above and adjust its width to never be below 300 pixels. Change the margin property to include 1 EM on the top and bottom and set the width as described above. Okay. So separate it from the field set above. Okay. So we're going to say margin, and top and bottom is 1 EM, and then the other margin is 0. Okay. Wait a second now. So this margin should be 1 EM. Okay. And now we want its width to never be below 300. We did this already. Min width. And we want to say 300 px. So the button is not going to go smaller than 300 pixels. Great. 55. Most browsers will put their own CSS values for different elements. If you look closely, you might notice the input is smaller than the other text. Yes, it is. By default, a padding of 1, 2 is given to input elements you can type in. Another attribute selector, style of input with type of file, to add the same padding as the other elements. Okay, input. We're going to do this. Type equals file. So we're using that attribute selector. We want to give it the same padding as the other elements. And the other elements padding is 2rem0. So we go in here and do this. Oh, 1 pixel, 2 pixels. Okay, sorry. 1 px, 2 px. There we go. So now check. We're happy, you're happy, I'm happy, everyone's happy. 56, speaking of padding, submit button is sitting at the bottom of the form. Add 2M of padding to the bottom of the form. Okay, only to the bottom. So we say padding bottom, and we'll say 2EM, should push it up. And now 57, last but not least, change text color of terms and conditions to hashtag DFDFE2. So we want to change the link color here. So to do that, I'm going to select link. I think that's going to be fine. And we're going to say color. And we're going to change that to hashtag DFDFE2. Da 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 da. And we have finished. Wow, 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 wow. So that was quite a complicated one, and we're starting to see now how FreeCodeCamp leaves you on your own to figure things out. So you need to go and do your own research to find the information you need. For me, W3 Schools is the best website to do that. w3schools.com. So right there, and anytime you have a problem, this should be the first place you go to try and figure out the answer. Anyway, guys, that's going to be it from me for today. I hope you had fun. I had a great time teaching you. Have a wonderful week. I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.